I always thought I knew my wife. For 7 years, Emily and I shared everything. Our home, our dreams, and even the smallest unspoken fears. She was my anchor, my steady presence in a world full of uncertainty. But looking back now, I realize how blind I was. Love and trust can do that. They can make you ignore things that should be obvious until it's too late. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how I lost everything. Emily had always been passionate about art. When we first met, she was painting murals in a rundown community center, trying to bring a little color to an otherwise gray and neglected neighborhood. Her dedication amazed me. She had this ability to lose herself completely in her work, to pour everything she had into a canvas. So when I got a job offer in Florence, one of the most artistic cities in the world, Emily was ecstatic. For her, it was like being invited to paradise. She said, "Florence," she said, her voice breathless as we sat in bed one night, reading through the job details. "Can you imagine? The museums, the galleries, the history. Ethan, we have to go." Her excitement was contagious. I accepted the job, and within 3 months we were living in a cozy apartment just a short walk from the Arno River. The cobblestone streets, the sounds of church bells echoing through the city, the vibrant energy of the markets, it all felt like a dream. At first, everything was perfect. Emily threw herself into Florence's art scene with the kind of passion I'd always admired. She joined a local art collective, spending her afternoons painting and socializing with other artists. She'd come home glowing, her hands streaked with paint, and tell me about her day. "You should see the people in this group, Ethan," she'd say, her voice full of excitement. "They're so talented. There's Marco, who does these amazing sculptures. And Sophia? Oh, her oil paintings are incredible. And then there's Adrian." Adrian? The first time she said his name, I didn't think much of it. He was just another member of her collective, someone she admired for his technique or his style. But as the weeks went on, his name started coming up more and more. "Adrian showed me this new way of layering acrylics," she said one evening as we sat on the couch, sharing a bottle of wine. "It's brilliant. You should see his work sometime. It's so raw." She talked about him the way she used to talk about me, back when we were still figuring each other out, back when every conversation felt like an adventure. I brushed it off at first. Emily had always been enthusiastic about the people she worked with, but as the weeks turned into months, something began to change. It started subtly. Emily began staying out later, saying the group's meetings had turned into spontaneous dinners or trips to a local gallery. She'd brush off my questions with a quick kiss and a promise to make it up to me. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, I trusted her. But then there were the little things. She started dressing differently. Sleek black dresses, bold red lipstick, and heels that made her legs look impossibly long. She began wearing a new perfume, one with a musky, intoxicating scent I didn't recognize. One evening, I asked if I could come with her to one of the collective's gatherings. "It's not really your thing, Ethan," she said, laughing lightly. "It's just a bunch of artists talking shop. You'd be bored to death." Her words stung, though I tried to hide it. I told myself she was probably right. What did I know about art anyway? Where did I begin then? Where am I still? The cracks started showing about 3 months after we moved. One evening, Emily went to an exhibition opening, and I decided to surprise her. I wanted to see her world, to be a part of the passion that seemed to consume so much of her time. The gallery was a small, intimate space filled with bold, abstract paintings. I scanned the room, searching for her among the crowd, but it was a voice that caught my attention first. It was deep, confident, and distinctly male. Turning toward the sound, I saw her. Emily stood by one of the paintings, laughing at something a man had said. He was tall, with sharp features and an air of effortless charisma. He leaned in closer than seemed appropriate, and Emily didn't pull away. My chest tightened. I wanted to go over, to introduce myself, to remind her that I was here too. But something held me back. Instead, I watched from a distance, my mind racing with questions I wasn't ready to confront. That night, Emily came home late, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. "How was it?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Wonderful," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You should have come. You'd have loved the atmosphere." Her words felt like a slap. Over the next few weeks, I became more observant. I noticed things I hadn't before, the way her phone was always on silent, the texts she quickly swiped away when I entered the room. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I hesitated for a moment, then picked it up. The message was from Adrian. "Looking forward to tomorrow. Can't wait to see you." My stomach churned. I scrolled through their messages, my hands trembling. There were dozens of them, flirty, intimate, and filled with references to stolen moments I hadn't known about. The next day, I told Emily I had to work late. In truth, I followed her. She left the house around 4 p.m., wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Her destination wasn't the collective's usual meeting spot, but a small cafe on the other side of town. I parked a block away and watched as she entered. 10 minutes later, Adrian arrived. They sat in a corner booth, leaning in close as they talked. At one point, he reached across the table to touch her hand, and she didn't pull away. I felt like I was going to be sick. That evening, Emily came home as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and curled up on the couch with a book. I couldn't take it anymore. "Who's Adrian?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise. "What are you talking about?" she said, feigning confusion. "Don't lie to me, Emily," I said, my hands clenched into fists. "I know about the messages. I saw you with him today." For a moment she said nothing, her face a mix of shock and guilt. Then, quietly, she said, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." The conversation that followed was the most painful of my life. She admitted everything. Adrian was someone who understood her in ways she claimed I couldn't. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I felt invisible, Ethan. I felt like we'd stopped seeing each other." Her words were a knife to my heart. "So you found someone else to make you feel seen," I said bitterly. "Did you ever stop to think about what this would do to me, to us?" The weeks that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and sleepless nights. Emily said she wanted to fix things, to rebuild what we'd lost, but I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. The trust between us was gone, shattered into pieces I couldn't imagine putting back together. In the end, we decided to separate. Emily moved out of our apartment, leaving behind her paints and canvases. I threw myself into work, trying to fill the void she left behind. It's been a year since that night, and I'm still picking up the pieces. I moved to a new city, started over in ways I never thought I'd have to. People say time heals all wounds, but I don't think that's true. Some wounds leave scars, reminders of the trust that was broken and the love that was lost.